So, guys, welcome to Sydney. I mean, how are you enjoying your stay thus far?
It's great. It finally stopped raining.
I love it. I love the people. I love the food.
How long have you been here? Like
3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been a lot of people.
I feel like a native.
Yeah.
So, Seth, I'm going to kick off with you. Number one, and I guess it's a question everyone's going to ask, is why Abraham Lincoln, and why is he a vampire?
Well, he is unique in American history as really being the only true superhero, I think. I mean, it sounds silly, but here's a man who came from absolutely nothing. He's like the Peter Parker of American history, you know. I mean, he came from no background, no family, no money, no good looks. You know, he loses a dear loved one when he's young, and it propels him on a spiral of self-loathing and vengeance. And then, lo and behold, this crystallizing moment in his life happens when he finds out there's more to the story than he thought, and he reaches a crossroads where he can either say, forget it, I'm not fighting, or he can say, all right, I'm going to devote my life to this. And like a true hero, he devotes his life to the cause, much in the same way that the real man did.
Yes.
There's just no one like him in American history, or frankly, world history. I mean, here's a guy who, you know, not only made himself, taught himself, educated himself, became the president of the United States, and then saved the United States, reunited the United States. I mean, literally by the force of his will and the power of his mind and his oratory. So he's a larger than life figure. He's a hero, but he's also a complex and extraordinary man. And it just seemed like, you know, the perfect guy to fight off the vampire menace.
And then, obviously, I mean, a fantastic role for you. Was it daunting stepping into the shoes and going, wow, I'm going to be putting on the hat and growing the beard? I'm going to be Abraham Lincoln?
At first it was, but I certainly had a wonderful support team. All the people around me and all the collaborators were at the top of their game. My job became not screwing it up. Also, what's fascinating about Lincoln is, like what Seth is saying, is that he was an ordinary man who made himself extraordinary. And I think that's something that we all aspire to do and that we can all learn from. And it was certainly my kind of way in, being a common man myself, to try and better yourself and try and learn from people who have done so.
But obviously, it is vampires, and I guess when everyone hears the name, they're naturally going to assume it's going to be fairly tongue-in-cheek, but looking at the footage we saw yesterday,
No, we're not playing around.
it's pretty serious.
The joke ends at the title. That's what we have to let people know. And I think when you see the trailer, when you see some of the spots and everything, you're going to get the sense that we're not kidding. The book, I wanted to take this ridiculous concept, which we completely acknowledge is crazy and ridiculous, and then do it as if it were an actual period piece. Never flinch, never apologize for it, and never wink at the audience. And luckily, the filmmaking team was on board with that concept from the get-go, and luckily we got Ben, who gave a serious, nuanced performance where it could have just been a throwaway, tongue-in-cheek kind of action performance. And it is a big action movie, but there's a lot of history in it, and there's a lot of emotion in it, and yes, there are crazy vampires in it.
Who die.
Yeah, that's right. Horrible deaths.
I mean, this is probably the biggest film you've worked on, and full
Sure.
of special effects and blood and violence and action. Are you ready to kind of take that mantle as America's next big action hero?
Good Lord. I just want to keep health insurance is my only goal. And to work with people that I learn from and make me better. And that's certainly what I've done on this project. And as long as I keep doing that, I'm living the dream.
And you mentioned people you're working. I mean, it's behind the camera. There's some amazing people.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, Tim Burton, and then Timor as well.
Timor, Caleb Deschanel, all the way down to the armorers. They're the top of their game.
And so Timor, as a director, what was he like to work with as an actor? And then what was he like to work with
I'll
as
let
a
you go
man?
first.
All right.
Yeah.
He's like a professional 6-year-old whose imagination just runs wild. And oftentimes that's startling, but what I learned from him is that as long as you're surprised, the audience will be surprised, and that you're never done. You must continue to delve into the details and try different ways and be sloppy, and because life is sloppy and history is sloppy and bloody and open to interpretation every day. And he certainly embodies that, and that sense of play and fun, which is exciting and brings the movie together.
As a writer, it's challenging, constantly exciting and exhilarating because you're always on your toes. Because, like Ben said, the ideas are going to come at you fast, furious, and constantly. I felt like Neo in the Matrix, dodging the bullets as they come at you. And those are Timur's ideas. And you just have to be ready. And you have to be ready to assume that you have the whole thing cracked in your head.
Yeah.
You've got it all sorted out. And then Timur will come at the 11th hour and go, oh, by the way, turn it upside down, we're doing it this way. And you go, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And, and you are in his playground, the playground of his imagination. And he's got it in his head. And as long as you trust in that, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of obviously he's an incredibly visual director. I mean, how much of that was in your script already, or is a lot of that just kind of flying from him?
One of the experiences I constantly had in this movie was I would write something. I'd write the hell out of an action sequence, and I don't, by the way, do very well writing action sequences. I like when characters are sitting there talking to each other, having a conversation. And I would suffer through these action sequences and write them, as detailed and as beautiful and as imaginative as I possibly could. And then I would see what he did, and it wasn't even the same galaxy of what I had imagined. I mean, he's so far beyond in terms of staging action, in terms of visuals, that it's scary.
And Ben, you're working with a great cast as well: Mary Elizabeth Winstead,
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Cooper, Rufus Sewell. I mean, can you talk a bit about working with all those guys? I mean,
Well, Mary Winstead certainly does Mary Todd proud, I'll say that. I think she'd have chemistry with about anyone. So she was a pleasure to work with. And Dominic, he's certainly much more experienced than I am. So the fact that he plays a mentor in this movie was a very healthy thing. Anthony Mackie is the perfect sidekick. He's simultaneously badass and out to seek justice and very funny. They're a good group. And Rufus, goodness gracious. You believe that he's been around since the dawn of man and has the presence to carry off being such a sinister vampire.
and lastly, I mean, obviously, you've done Abraham Lincoln and you've done Pride and Prejudice. Is there any literary or historical character who you think is sacred and mustn't be touched, or are you planning your next?
Well, I just wrote a book about Jesus, so I mean,
Yeah,
clearly I jumped over the sacred. And no, I mean, what I'm interested in is telling big genre stories, whether they be science fiction, fantasy, horror. I don't know that I'm going to keep coming back to the well of let's match this with this, because I think that's kind of a short-sighted, narrow career. I grew up wanting to write big, audacious genre stories, and by virtue of Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and this book, I sort of got a reputation for being a mashup guy, but I may surprise you. I may not write a mashup next time.
Guys, I think my time's up, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thanks, man.